Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be a review and first impression on the new Huda Beauty Glowish concealer. This is the Bright Light Sheer Concealer. The sheer part really intrigued me. If you've been subscribed for a while, if you watched any of my videos, the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Concealer is my #1 all-time favorite concealer. I'm pretty sure I put this in my best of beauty for 2022. So when I heard she was coming out with a new concealer, even though it's not right up my alley with the sheer coverage, I knew I was gonna have to try it, test it out, do a wear test. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. You'll be seeing me applying this concealer, doing a 4-hour check-in outside in natural daylight. Of course, I'll be inserting in swatches, and then I'll be doing an end of day check-in around 8 to 10 hours. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet. And first, let's just talk about all the details of this concealer. Now, before we get started talking about the details, I do just want to say I have seen the recent news with Huda Beauty and some of the hot water that she's in. I only saw it last night and I'm just not sure how it's going to play out just yet. So I decided to still do this video. And if I'm not really liking the response from Huda Beauty because I'm not really liking already what happened in that whole situation, I'll take this video down. But for now, I decided to just continue on, review this concealer because I'm sure that there's still people who are interested in it, and we're gonna go from there. This concealer retails for $27. I paid 27 euros, a little bit more than you guys are paying over in the States, but that's okay. And it comes in 15 shades. I picked up the shade 01 Fair. It's supposed to correlate with the Huda Beauty Glowish Multi-Dew Foundation. And in that, I picked up the shade Light, and it's a little bit too dark for me. That foundation does run a little bit darker than maybe some other foundations. So that's why I decided to go with Fair. I was back and forth, but since it's a sheer coverage, ultimately that's the shade I decided to go with. I will be swatching this concealer compared to other concealers, but also just compared to that Multi-Dew foundation, just so you can see the difference there, because Fair is 01 and I think that Light is 03. So I'll be doing swatches of that, but this is supposed to be the ultimate sheer coverage concealer, which is different. We don't really see those kinds of concealers out on the market. Everything is always just full coverage concealer, hide those dark circles, make yourself look young. But I saw some comments when this released that a sheer coverage concealer could really be beneficial for people specifically with mature skin. Now, I don't have mature skin. I struggle mostly with dark circles. So I thought that that was really interesting. And if you have mature skin and you've tried this concealer, of course, let me know down below in the comments how you liked it. It really made sense to me though that a more sheer coverage concealer could be more beneficial to someone with maybe who struggles with crepiness under the eyes. I'm just gonna wait and see and look for reviews on that. But mostly I wanted to see with dark circles. I think that this maybe has a time and place and the right moment. They're really marketing this as the most natural, no makeup concealer. And in all of the demonstrations, they use it not only as a concealer, but as an all-over foundation. I'm not really interested in that. This has 10 milliliters of product, so why would I use this as a foundation, especially if I would have to pick up 2 shades? I'm only gonna use it as a concealer, but some of the claims on this is that it's a lightweight concealer. More specifically, it's feather lightweight. It's hydrating, illuminating, rejuvenating. It's supposed to give you a seamless finish, and it's also transfer proof, which I found very, very interesting, how a hydrating, illuminating concealer could be transfer proof. So I'm going to test all of those. Of course, I am wearing this concealer right now. I've already done my application and everything that I'm wearing is listed down below. I would very much agree with the fact that it's hydrating, very much so, and illuminating, but the transfer proof is really what I want to test out. So that's kind of just the details and some of my thoughts going into this foundation review. I'm gonna pan over now though and just pull you in a little bit closer, show you nice up close and personal, me applying this concealer and just really my very, very first impression thoughts on this. And then afterwards, we'll get into the wear test, swatches, and my final thoughts. So let's just get into it. I have my skin fully prepped, moisturizer, sunscreen, primer, all that good stuff. So I am just gonna go in now with this concealer. I picked up the shade 1 Fair. I don't know if that's gonna work for me. We're just gonna wait and find out together. And then here is the component. And then here's what the doe foot looks like. I went with the shade Fair because I have light in the foundation and that is way, way too dark for me. So I decided to go Fair. Let's just see. It does say on the website to apply 3 dots and dab it out. It says not to rub it. So that is what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3. And then because it says to really just dab it out, I'm going to use my Rare Beauty concealer brush and just see how that works. I think the shade is fine as a highlighting shade. I don't know if I'd use this on the rest of my face. Figured it wasn't too big of a deal whether I got Fair or I think I was deciding between Fair Light since this is supposed to be a more sheer coverage. And it is definitely a sheer coverage. I'm gonna dab it out with my finger. I really didn't want to do that, but that seems like it's going to be the better method. I can see how radiant it is now. That could be because of all the skincare I had on, but it is definitely much more radiant than I would prefer. And I can still see coverage, but it is sheer. I am kind of interesting. I was thinking about this just before filming that on this eye, I'm going to apply my color corrector just because I more struggle with dark circles. And I want to see if maybe putting on a color corrector hides that a little bit more while still having a sheer coverage concealer. So that way we can just test both. So far it looks nice, at least in the mirror. In the camera, like I can still see the hollowness and just the discoloration, but in the mirror, it's not looking terrible. Let's do the other eye with color corrector. With my Benefit color corrector, I usually go in with this Smashbox brush. It's just more of like a very stipple brush, and it applies just the right amount of color corrector for me where it's not too heavy. And then that way, like my concealer doesn't crease and cake on top of the color corrector. So I just want to put like a very tiny, tiny amount, especially like right in this corner. So you can already see with the color corrector, it's colored up a lot of the darkness versus this side that just has the concealer and no color corrector. And now I don't have any concealer on yet. I think that if I was to use this in the future, just based off of right now, this would be the way that I would go. I usually try and use a color corrector anyways, regardless of the type of concealer. So that wouldn't really be changing my routine. I'm gonna do 3 dots again. I'm not mad at the shade. I think that maybe it's like a teeny tiny bit light, but if I was pairing this with a foundation, I think it would be a nice highlight shade. And I'm just gonna dab it out with my brush, and then I'll probably just go back in with my finger and really finesse that. So here is the side with color corrector and then concealer on top. Here's the side with no color corrector. You know, like I just said, I think I prefer the color corrector side. It just covers that blueness just a little bit more and makes the hollowness a little bit less. So that's how I'm liking it so far. I do think this shade is a little bit too light for me to use as an all-over foundation. I know that a lot of her demonstrations did both, but she also did 2 shades, and I'm not about to buy 2 shades just to test that method. So I'm going to apply the rest of my makeup off of camera. It's going to be very, very light. I don't even know how much foundation I'll use, if any. I might just use a different darker concealer, and I will be back to just give my first impressions once I let this sink in. It is looking fairly luminous, which is what they advertise as. So I will probably set this down with my powder because I don't love that look. But first I'm going to do concealer, all that, let it really sink in, and then I'll decide if I'm going to powder or not. Rest of my makeup is on. So just as a reminder, this is the side that I used a color corrector underneath, and then this is the side without. I would say now that the rest of my makeup is on, you know, you can still see a difference just with the shadow. Like, I think it's still a little bit more obvious on this side, but nothing too drastic. I did opt to not powder anywhere, and I went in with just like a darker concealer that I have. This is the L'Oreal Age Perfect. This is also a radiant concealer. Everything that I'm wearing is listed down below, but I went very light. Like, I only used cream bronzer, cream blush, cream highlight, barely put anything on the lids. So this is what I'm looking like so far. I'm a little worried not powdering because I do feel a little bit more radiant than I'm used to, but you know, right now I'm not hating it. I think there's a time and place for this kind of look. I'm happy with the look so far. So I'm just gonna see how this wears. Right now it's around 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm gonna come back in 4 hours, check in with you all outside in natural daylight, and we'll just go from there. All right, it's around 2 o'clock. It's been 4 hours, so I'm outside in daylight, still a little bit chilly, so I have my jacket on. Normally the goats aren't back here, but they're eating the grass because there's no point in mowing the lawn when you have goats. Back to the concealer though, I didn't say this when I wrapped up my makeup, but I didn't apply anything to the lower lash line other than concealer, meaning I didn't put any shadow under there, I didn't put any mascara. So let me just take my glasses off. I think you'll need to see. So this is the side with no color corrector, just the concealer. And then this is the side with the color corrector. Obviously, the color corrector is just going to color correct a little bit more. It's going to just add a little bit more coverage than the side with no color corrector. So I'm not loving how this looks. Yes, it's meant to be a no makeup kind of concealer, but for me, if I'm gonna wear a no makeup look, then I still wanna hide my dark circles. I'd rather just wear no makeup and have my dark circles showing, but if I'm gonna take the time to put on a concealer, I do want it to hide my dark circles. So the light is kind of being weird with the coverage, but you can still just see how noticeable like the hollows are versus this side. So if I was going to use this again, I would probably use a color corrector, but no powder. You know, right here it's looking shiny on my forehead, but that doesn't have anything to do with the concealer, just what else I used, and I'm liking it. It looks okay. I can see the purpose of this concealer. For me, I don't know if this is like my preferences, but I can see its purpose. I can see why people would like it. And as I mentioned in the intro, I could see this being good for people with mature skin, just not wrinkling, because there is zero creasing. And while I don't have a lot of under eye wrinkles, there is absolutely zero creasing whatsoever despite that. I'm gonna take this off. The glare is really bothering me today. So yeah, you know, like I said, just right here, I don't know, like because I'm wearing other products on, I just feel like I kind of looks like it's bruised almost. That's Cookie. So I'm not loving this. I'm undecided just about this concealer right now. I think it works, it serves its purpose, but for me, it's meh. I'm gonna spend the next 4 hours just really finalizing my thoughts, deciding how I really just feel. So after this, I'm going to be inserting in swatches of this concealer along with some other concealers, as well as the multi-dew tint from Huda Beauty. And I'll just see you in my final thoughts. I don't know. I'm just feeling kind of weird about this. I'm not sure how I feel, but I will see you in my final check-in. It's now 9:30 at night, so I've officially had this on for 11 and a half hours, and this is what I'm looking like. I kind of got tired of having the hair down, so it went up. The concealer, I mean, I'm not gonna look at the foundation because I'm not liking that, and that has nothing to do with this. I'm gonna try and keep this brief because I've really been trying to get my thoughts together since the check-in and figure out what was just off about it, because it's not that the product isn't doing what it says it's supposed to do, it is. And after 11 and a half hours, I can't believe that I can still tell the concealer's on. So it is long lasting, and I would agree that it's transfer proof. That's kind of like a weird claim for me for a concealer, only because like how much transfer are you gonna get on your under eyes? But since they kind of show it all over the face as well for a no makeup look, I can see why they're saying transfer proof. But the thing that I just don't like about this is that it's too radiant, and it's not even too radiant. They said in there that it's light reflecting, and I think that's specifically what I just don't like about this concealer, because as the day progresses, you're going to get more and more dewy, more radiant, but the light reflecting, when your oils come through, it like mixes with the concealer and almost looks glittery under the eyes. I don't mind a hydrating under eye. I recently reviewed the Givenchy Skin Caring Concealer, and that is a very hydrating concealer. Your under eyes just look so hydrated, but there's a difference between hydrated and like glittery. Now that doesn't mean that no one's gonna like this, because I know that there are some people who take the Hourglass Ambience powders and they like to use that underneath their eyes. I am not that kind of person. I want a really smooth finish for my under eyes, and that is what I pinpoint I just don't like about this. It kind of just gives like a glittery effect. Now, since it's more the end of the day, you can't really tell which one had the color corrector and which one didn't. I would say that they look about the same. So in the beginning, I would use a color corrector, but by the end of the day, you're not even going to be able to tell which one you used color corrector and which one you didn't. It looks about the same now. And that's really just my thoughts on this. I am not going to be using this as intended as a sheer coverage concealer or a no makeup. For me, the finish is off. I don't mind the sheerness. I like a more natural makeup look. For me, it's purely just the finish. If I was to go in for a no makeup look on those days, which I don't necessarily do rarely, I'd rather just not wear makeup those days and not even bother. But if I'm gonna do that, I reach for my NARS Soft Matte Concealer, because this just gives more of the finish that I'm looking for. And if I want some glow, I can add that with the highlight. But this I know lasts throughout the day. When my oils come through, it kind of keeps them at bay. It still kind of looks radiant and makes it look more natural once my oils come through. The problem with this is that once your oils come through, as the day progresses, it just starts to look too shiny, too sweaty. It just passes that natural glow look, and I'm not loving that. I do think that there's people who will like this. I do think that there's a place for this in the beauty space, of course, but for me, it's not just my cup of tea. The way that I'm gonna use this now is probably, because it is so light, it is in the shade Fair, I will probably use this more on top of full coverage foundations where I kind of just want to highlight without adding coverage. I think that's going to be the best route for me. If I could go back in time and not purchase this, I don't think it's something I have to have in my collection to use it for that purpose. I'm just saying that's how I'm going to take advantage of this product and use it so I don't feel like I was completely wasting my money. Those are just my thoughts on this product here, the new Glowish concealer. Gonna still give a shout out to the Faux Filter Concealer. This one is beautiful. It is much more full coverage, of course. So if you're looking for a sheer coverage, this is not it. But if you're deciding between the two, you cannot go wrong with this concealer. It is so beautiful on the skin. It's so smoothing. It says it's a luminous matte, and it really is. It gives a matte finish with just a touch of radiance. I absolutely love this. I just wanted to make sure, again, that I brought that up. But that is gonna wrap up this video. You'll have to let me know down below in the comments if you plan on picking this up. It kind of just seemed like a lot of people were just a pass on this all together because it was a sheer coverage concealer, but I wanted to test it out, just see how it went. So let me know down below in the comments if you were kind of on team see what it's about or just a complete pass. And if you did try it, what are your thoughts down below? Of course, I will be coming back and just doing another video on first impressions that I've been doing over the past 2 months or so. So keep an eye out for that because this will be in it. And I will just be trying it in different ways with powder, etc., to just find out the best way that this is. This is the first impression. My thoughts and opinions could change. That's all I have for you today. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and I will see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.